Wicked. Hello, Grant, man. How you doing?
Good, man. What about
Not
you?
too bad, dude. Not too bad, man. Thanks so much for being here. It's my you've got there. You're my first international guest, so I'm very much very excited for this one, mate. Very excited.
I'm honored, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all, man. I mean, it's like I was trying to put this list of questions together, obviously for today's talk, and it's like I was trying to pinpoint like when did we become like digital friends, as you want to call it, man? Like when do you reckon that? Was it YouTube? Do you think?
You know, I don't know. I know we talk a lot on Twitter. I don't know if we even met there, or it might have been YouTube. It's been a while. So it's hard for me to remember. It could have even been Facebook. I know we've got some mutual friends, so.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's the amount of times like I bring people on here, and it's like I can't even remember how we first started talking, but it was definitely one of the. I think it just compounds. I think in this industry, man, like you sort of once you kind of start talking to one guy and then you start talking to somebody else, suddenly you start, like you say, you see the mutual friends, and I think you just pick up on like I think me and you have definitely spoke mostly on Twitter, and then a little bit here and there on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so psyched to have you here, man. I really am. So thanks so much for that, dude. I mean, I think it's probably been about 2 years that we've been sort of chatting here and there,
Yeah, that sounds about right. It has been probably about 2 years now.
which is really cool. So I mean, introduce yourself a little bit, dude. Tell everyone all about everything Grant, mate, is what we want.
Well, my name's Grant Borland. I'm a composer here in Michigan, in the United States. I've been composing trailer music for probably, I'd say maybe 3 years now, and I've landed a few placements now, as well as some TV stuff. And yeah, just working at trying to become a full-time composer. That's the next goal for me.
I think it's definitely. I mean, seeing your progress, man, the whole way through has been just inspiring, to be honest. Because I think we're all, some of the questions we got lined up are kind of going to touch on that kind of well. But I mean, one of the things that I think really inspired me back, it's probably going to be about a year and a half ago, is when you started your podcast, and
Yeah,
your the Thought Collective, which I loved, and I was checked into it, but it was understanding. I think your first episode where you were talking about kind of like the creative versus the creating.
yes,
Um,
yep.
and we all kind of like, I still work a day job here and there, and then I kind of duck out of it for a while and I'm focusing on music because I'm busy with music. Then I duck out again and I jump back into music again. And it's kind of, I hear what you're saying. It's kind of like that episode sort of like it meant a lot to me in the way that like everyone's kind of going through that same thing as we're all creative people. If you're not sort of feeding that creative spirit, if you like, you need to kind of
Yeah.
flex that spirit. You need to get that creative thing going. But then it's how you deal with it. Where I suppose when you're working like that day job and you got to come in and you got to actually then start creating something. That's work, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the big thing. Yeah, we're all creative people, but I think the creating is really the discipline behind that creative energy, and that's really what gets you from, or it gets you to the finish line. Really, it's just a lot of work, and it's hard. I mean, you'll be creative, but as you're pushing that and you're trying to be more disciplined, a lot of times, I know for me, you kind of start to run out of ideas. You have all these ideas built up, but then you start knocking them off the list, and then you're kind of in a writer's block again. But it's important to just kind of keep pushing through that, and I think that's the big difference between being creative and creating itself. But yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's almost like we can all kind of get into dream world, can't we? Where we've got all these ideas that we want to do, and it's like the amount of times I've really thought, right, I really want to get some simps, and it's something I need to do. Like I know you bought some hardware simps over the past kind of year or so,
Yeah.
and it's I just want to do it to get me to But I keep thinking all these things I could create, all these things I could go, but then you get pulled into one job that kind of takes over your time for a period of there, and you don't do that. And so I suppose there comes a point where it's like, look, Mike, stop talking about you're going to be create, you're going to get instead of just being creative, start creating. And I think that's kind of what you were trying to nail out. And I mean, I know you were kind of saying that you almost going to like be coming in, having some food, throwing your phone in the next room, and then just setting out and working for kind of like 3-4 hours. You said, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you kind of, I suppose I wanted to revisit that, because that was towards the end of 2018, then obviously into 19. Do you think you kind of were successful with that, or did you kind of burn out as well doing that?
Um, I think I think overall it was successful. Big picture wise, it was successful. I think day to day might have been a little different. There's times where you will burn out, and I think that's a natural thing. But I think big picture is the thing to focus on. You're not gonna be extremely productive every single day, and that's just a part of being human. Um, but as long as you remind yourself and you stay on track, I think overall it's a successful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's one thing. I know you're a big fan of Matt Diavella's channel over
Yeah.
there, and so am I. I think most people, if you're alive and have an internet connection, have seen Matt Diavella's videos. But he had a chap on and he was talking about like essentialism and kind of he was gave the analogy of there's the one chap who'd written kind of like long journal entries, but he only had say like five of them, or six of them over a long period of time, and then some guy who had like he wrote a little bit a day, but over his lifespan he had like an entire collection of of ideas and things. I think that's kind of if you can just do 20 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, 2 hours, if you just do something every day, I think you're generally going to be set up for success.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Ex-
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big thing too. I think I know myself included, you get this picture in your head where you've got to be doing, absolutely everything every day. You've got to be putting in, 8 hours every single day. But sometimes the reality is like, I work a day job. I don't have the luxury to always work 8 hours a day. Sometimes, I'm more productive in a 2 hour window than I am in an 8 hour window. It just depends on the day. So it's really important to kind of keep yourself in check and realize that, hey, it's okay, that I only work 2 hours a day, because it's about what you're putting out more so than the time you put into it. If it's good and it takes you 2 hours to make, then that's it. It's good, and that's great. Don't
Absolutely.
beat yourself up about it.
Absolutely, I think that makes perfect sense. I'm gonna jumble the questions around a little bit, man, just because like I think it will flow a little better. This tends to be they're quite easygoing these, mate. To be honest, I hope that's coming across. I like to think I'm a fairly easygoing dude. But
Yeah.
your music career, man. Like I know just from obviously listening to the podcast and hearing you say sort of bits and bobs. Um, did you start off kind of playing the guitar? Was that something you kind of you kind of start with the music?
Yeah, it was guitar. I was probably about 9 or 10 years old when I started taking lessons, and I initially wanted to play the drums. I thought the drums were a way cooler instrument, but I didn't have a drum kit, and I didn't know anyone that could teach me how to play the drums at the time. But luckily, there was a guy who lived across the street from me that would play guitar, and he started teaching me how to play guitar. And when I was young, he had extra guitars, so he'd let me borrow his guitar so I could practice until I saved up enough money to buy my own guitar. Um, but I'm glad it kind of worked out that way, because I just fell in love with that instrument, and I wouldn't have it any other way. That was a really it was a fundamental instrument for me. I feel if I learned how to play the drums first, I just wouldn't be where I am now in certain ways. Whether that's developing melodies, there's just something about learning musical notes at a young age, I think, that just really left a big impression on me career wise.
Absolutely. I think it depends where you come from, and obviously moving into. I suppose my next question really should be: when did the film stuff kind of get onto your radar?
Um, Actually, I've so it's kind of an interesting backstory in a lot of ways. Throughout high school, I was really into metal music.
Cool.
But I like bands like. Are you familiar with the band called The Faceless?
I'm not the faceless, no.
No, they were kind of they were metal, but a lot of the stuff that they did kind of was like thematic, I would say. It reminded me of like sci-fi and aliens and stuff like that. And I really like gravitated towards those certain moods and emotions rather than the metal music itself. It
Sure.
was just kind of like this atmosphere they built. And I became really obsessed with that kind of I guess storytelling would be the best way to put it. It wasn't just heavy riffs and breakdowns. It just felt like there was more substance to that music. And so I kind of expanded on that, and that led me into like ambient music and things of that nature. And eventually along the way, I just had this burning desire to like write music that told a story. I wanted to write big music. I just wanted to take it to the next level, which naturally led me into film music. But are you familiar with Daniel James?
I'm very much familiar with Daniel James. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, all those guys, they're actually on a. I think Dirk's got a live stream running now, on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I was kind of watching a little bit of that. Part of me was like, "Damn, I bet Grant's thinking, Mike, I want to watch this thing," you know, but I'm going to go back and check in with those guys, see what they're saying. But yeah, I know Daniel James absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I stumbled upon one of his videos on YouTube. I don't remember what I was looking for. I think it was just one of those days where you're just kind of binging on YouTube, clicking on all the side videos and, wasting time. But I stumbled upon Daniel James, and I think he was doing a walkthrough on the Hans Zimmer percussion
Yeah,
library by
okay, yeah,
Spitfire Audio. And the way he sets up his videos is he'll talk about the library, but he's like, I've written a small track, let's play through that and basically dissect it. And he played that track, and dude, my jaw just dropped to the floor. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that you can make music that sounds so realistic from your computer. I'm so used to like using cheesy samples that come within your DAW. I didn't realize that there was like third party like
yeah.
sample developers, and that just like blew my mind and opened up my world. And I'm like, I've got to buy this stuff. Like, I need to make music like this, and the rest is history, man. Like, I just started writing songs like that, posting them on SoundCloud, and then one thing led to another. You'd find another composer that made similar music, and then you'd start talking, and that's where the networking began. And before you know it, I got into the trailer music industry by accident, really. But
I think it's really interesting because I suppose my start was very much metal. Like I was a crazy guy about a decade ago, and I was really into that black metal stuff, like the real sort of extreme end of that. And I suppose if you like, but it all had a
yeah,
symphonic element to it and lots of synths and I always loved movie music. So like I think my dad back in '95 he bought one of the first like home, he thought it was cool. It's like a home surround sound system. And I'm there watching Gladiator, and I'm in 2000, I
oh yeah,
was 12. And I was
okay,
like, wow, this is incredible. But then I did the metal thing as well, But it's weird. If you look at metal music, really, it is like, heavy orchestral. It is basically classical music, isn't it? Really, just heavied up. And you
yeah.
can see those. You can see those. It's really, really. I love these talks for this reason, man. It's like you hear kind of uh, it's interesting to see people's dots, and I think definitely with Daniel James. I mean that I was at uni when I found his videos, and I thought kind of the same. Like I'd already kind of started buying the sample libraries, but I was like, wow, okay, these are incredible. These ones you can get, and then you like you say you find everybody else. So I think you kind of do the same thing. It's like suddenly you've got no money left because you've spent tons of money on all these damn libraries, and you're like, right, I've got to use them. But
Right.
it is, and I suppose really trailers, because I was thinking about this. It's like, how did I end up doing this? Getting sort of almost like pitching for trailer. I think partly it was that I got approached. I think I did like a rescore of Prometheus when I was at uni, and I just put it on YouTube and thought whatever. And I got approached by a firm in LA who wanted to try and place that queue and look at some stuff for Jurassic World, and it kind of pushed me in that direction. Do you think
Yeah.
with you it was kind of similar to that, or do you think you just ended up, I suppose, getting into the dynamics and by writing dynamic music, it just naturally sort of fell into that genre?
No, no. I think it was just being in the right place at the right time for me. I got introduced to it through a buddy named Brian Wynn. He works for a company called Ghostwriter Music now, but back in the day, he was just writing for different publishers as just a composer. And we just started networking there, and he kind of asked me if I knew what trailer music was, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And so he kind of explained it to me. And I started writing music that was like in a similar vein to trailer music. I mean, I look back at it now and I think it's pretty awful, but I tried at the time. And, after, multiple attempts, it started getting a little better and a little better. And right around that time, he got hired to work for a company called Gothic Storm.
Got you.
And yeah, he was looking for new composers at that time, and I had been practicing trailer music around that same time, and we had been networking pretty frequently. So he's like, "Hey, we've got this album that we're trying to get composers on. Would you be interested in writing for this album?" And of course, I took the opportunity, and after a few revisions, we got the track where we wanted it, and it ended up on that album. And that was like such a rewarding process to actually have a song on an album whose company has done trailers, just numerous trailers and numerous TV shows and all that stuff. It felt like for once I really had a shot at getting my music into something cool, rather than it just being a far distant dream that I wanted to keep working at. Like, I didn't realize how close I really was to having that kind of success just through, like, some simple networking on
Sure.
Facebook. I didn't. It's just crazy to think about. But yeah, it was just right place at the right time, kind of by accident.
I think it's one of those. I mean, I suppose that firstly, it leads me well. It leads me into your current album, which I was really excited to see, man. Do they hear us? You've
Oh
just
yeah.
released that, yeah, as like as an industry album, and straight away,
Hmm.
because I thought that, man. I think I was. You know what I think I was doing? I was at a store, with the whole social distancing, and I'm trying to get into my local supermarket, and I'm outside the store. I don't know if you guys have got that there. They make you wait before you can go into the shop.
Yeah, I live in a pretty small town, so it's
Okay.
not nearly as crazy. But yeah,
Mate,
I've seen it.
London has just been crazy, and I'm standing outside the store. I go on Facebook, and I'm like, it's Grant. He's okay. He's put an album out, and straight away I'm trying to find this album. I want to play this album. And I could see a bunch of your buddies were kind of almost like in the same camp as me. What are your kind of, because with me it's always been. I mean, a lot of the tracks that have almost either gone to pitch or ended up placed are on albums that you can hear that are mine.
Yeah.
So it's like because with the well, first off, I suppose, how do they hear us come along, and what is the whole deal with, like, are they gonna release it, dude, so we can hear it, or is it literally for the industry?
Well, okay. So first of all, the album came about probably 2 years ago. Really, is when it started. I was just writing songs for myself in this particular style. It's kind of like a post rock meets orchestral meets trailer music. I was kind of just doing it for fun. I don't know if you're familiar with bands like Explosions in the Sky or
Yep,
Lights in Motion, things like that.
yep, yep.
But I was really inspired by that kind of stuff, so I started writing music just for myself in that kind of vein. And that probably started about 2 years ago. But fast forward about a year and a half later, um, I had a collection of maybe 4 or 5 songs in this genre built up, and I just pitched it to Ghostwriter, or to Astral. That's where it ended up, but that's kind of the same company. I just pitched it to those guys, and they liked it, and they wanted me to write a 10 song album and finish it out. So from there on, I just kept writing those tracks, and it was really an awesome process, because it's probably my favorite genre. If I had to like come down to one genre and pick a favorite, I would say it's probably that kind of music. So it just came to me so naturally, just all the melodies and that. It was just such a fun album to build. But getting back to your industry album topic, as far as the release goes, sometimes I see them release them publicly, but only after it's been out to industry for a while. I know a lot of like trailer editors, from what I've heard, like to have kind of private tracks and have a private selection. And I don't exactly know why that is, but I kind of just have to, take my hands off it sometimes, just lay back and trust the process. I trust the publishers a lot, and, they've landed me some great placements. So
It-
I know whatever they're doing works. So sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'd love to share these tracks like with my friends and family. But if it comes out publicly, then it does. But I'm happy either way. It's just, you know, at the end of the day, I wrote these songs with business in mind. I wanted these songs to end up in trailers. So if that's their approach to landing them, then I'm
Absolutely.
fine with
Oh,
that.
it's just us, like, it's just me, man, being like, I want to hear, especially given that you're saying that it's like, these are songs, a genre you really want to live in. It's like, man, I want to hear these songs, and I know people are thinking the same thing, dude. But I hear it, and I do think. I mean, the trailer world, it's Cavalry Music, who I was in contact with in LA,
Oh yeah.
and I think you are right. Is they're looking for like a signature sound? They're always talking to me about a signature sound, and I kind of put a few things together for them for like the Doctor Sleep campaign. They didn't get used, but they were after like a toolkit. So I was there almost like doing,
Yeah.
I suppose, what you call ambient sound design or musical sound design. I'm recording like gas canisters and bits of chalk and all this crazy stuff, but that's what they wanted. They wanted almost like I think they wanted something that they could continually keep using. So I do understand that, and I think if you've got an album of content that could be used, that's not been sort of heard or not been used anywhere else, you can see how there's value in that. So I
Yeah.
think it absolutely makes sense. It's just us lot being selfish, man. That's what it is. But like, I know, like Epic Score again, Daniel James. His first kind of,
Yeah.
I suppose, his first industry album was on Epic Score, and they
Mhm.
released that for as like a consumer. We could all listen to it. So that's that just sounds cool, man. And I know as well because I was in Los Angeles in 2015, but I,
Yeah.
I did it in a little bit of a it's what I call sliders of America, because I did sort of 5 days in New York, kind of 5 days in LA, and then sort of 3 days in San Francisco. And I think back then I was on holiday for a start, and I didn't kind of like I went down to 14th Street and saw Remote Control Productions. I saw
Yeah.
like Harry Gregson Williams' studio like in Venice Beach, although I think he'd actually moved. It looked pretty damn shut when I was there.
Okay. Yeah.
But I kind of scouted these places out. I went to Sony and managed to get into the Barbra Streisand scoring stage, and that was awesome. And kind of met some guys, and I was there for 4th of July, kind of like it's probably illegal, but sort of drinking beers on the sidewalk and sort of partying and whatever else. And it's crazy. I was wearing like an Abbey Road studios because I've been being from London. I've been in Abbey Road, and I was wearing a t-shirt, and people are going crazy, like, man, Abbey Road, like, you've been to Abbey Road, man? They're just coming up and talking to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a composer too. I'm like, really? Like, and you're swapping cards, and the whole thing was just incredible to me, man. Like, I'm in an Uber,
Yeah.
talking to some dude about, I love film music or whatever, and he's like, oh, you want to go to, I think it's the Buffalo Lounge in Santa Monica, and that's where Hans Zimmer's techs kind of hang out and get their drink in there. So
Yeah.
I suppose my question is like I did the LA thing, but not
Mhm.
properly. I want to come back and do it from more a business standpoint. I know you went last year,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
you went to I saw your post like you spent a day with the guys at Gothic Storm. Like you had a conversation like around. I thought was it Ghostwriter you with as well? You spent a couple of days there. Like how did you find it, man? LA.
Um, well, really, it helped that I was writing for them because I kind of had a destination, and then from there, well, really, I've been to LA 3 times now in the past year and a half, I'd say. So that's been good. And every time's been a little bit different. But initially, the way my first time to LA, the reason was that my publisher, Ghostwriter Music, was actually doing a composer meetup. So they invited a bunch of composers to meet at this bar. And, there was a lot of people that were going to be flying into Los Angeles for this event, and myself included. So that's why I went to Los Angeles in the first place. And so I met all the ghostwriter guys, and then at the event itself, there's all these other composers that are coming in, and as just networking at that point, just meeting tons of different people, and people that don't necessarily do trailer music, but do TV music and film scoring and all these different avenues, and that really kind of opened doors for the next time I went to Los Angeles. I'd hang out with these friends that I met before, and they'd introduce me to these guys. And more recently, like this time I was in Los Angeles back in February, I have a buddy that works down at Remote Control, and he gave me a tour of the place, and we actually got to sit inside Hans
Oh
Zimmer's
man,
studio, which
incredible.
was, oh man, yeah, that pictures don't do it justice. It was really a neat place to see. Um, but every time I've been there, it's been a little bit different, and it just seems like I meet someone new each time I go there. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Six Trailer Music, but Sam that works there, he lives in the United Kingdom, and he was visiting Los Angeles around the same time I was visiting Los Angeles, and I've never really messaged him before. I know who he is, but I've never messaged him before. But I saw he was in Los Angeles, and then I shot him a message, and we kind of talked back and forth. And next thing you know, we're meeting up in Santa Monica, just grabbing coffee and just kind of just talking, small talk or whatever. And that's kind of how it goes, man. Like, people out there are there to network, so it's not too hard to find, you know, like-minded people, and then you start building from there. But
Absolutely, it is incredible. I mean, I think because over here in London, I think us Brits have got this sort of, we're quite guarded about, like, if someone comes to you and they're trying to sort of network with you, and this is true, man. It's almost like you're straight away the other person's thinking, what does this guy want? And it's
yeah,
like we put this wall up in London, and it's a nightmare. Like, if you're going somewhere, you've got to be a plus one, or you go Groucho Lounge. You've got to be Groucho Lounge is like a place in Soho where essentially you can hang out if you're in the industry and not be bothered. So I suppose it does make sense. They just don't want anybody sort of go in there, for that. But that was definitely my take home from spending time. I think just in the States in general, man. Like, I didn't have one bad experience,
that's awesome.
in my entire stay, and New York, it was like I was a local. People asking me directions. I'm like, yeah, man, go up there to the top of the block and take that kind of thing. Like, but it's definitely, and I suppose I was maybe a little cynical when I came back from LA. Like, I had all these business cards, and I was kind of bummed out to be home. I wanted to spend a bit more time there and whatever else. And I emailed everyone and kind of said, hey, it's Mike. We met in this place. We met, and that every single person emailed me back. And
Wow.
it's like you say, it's very much like, hey, if you're back again, I'll show you where, if you want to live in LA, it's like, you got to move to LA, Mike. They'll love you here. I'll show you West Hollywood. You want to avoid the traffic, and you can stay on my couch. And it's like, just the openness of it was just incredible, man. Like,
Yeah.
so I think, I mean, that's actually one of the things the guys were talking about in the in Dirk's live stream, which I say is happening now. They were saying is, do you have to live in Los Angeles in order to become kind of like successful? And I suppose
Yeah.
that's kind of a question I had for you. Obviously, you're in the States.
Yeah.
Do you think is because the consensus over there was that it's not necessary, but you have the opportunity, like we've been discussing, you can do those meetups, you can do those networking events. It's not going to make you successful, but it's perhaps going to put you in, set you up in the right place to do so. Do you think this? What's your take on that?
Right. I don't I don't think it's necessary. I think you, with the internet and the way things are, I think you can make a living at it living anywhere in the world. But what I will say is, even if you don't plan on living in Los Angeles, I highly recommend going. Because each time I go, I learn so much. Um, Talking with composers that are living there and they're working there, they have just opened my eyes to just how many possibilities there are out there to make a living writing music. If you kind of stay where you're at and you don't travel and make those kind of connections and that kind of network, you're kind of really just left with, your own thoughts in that way. It's totally. I mean, while the internet is very important and you can network very well that way, there's just something to be said about like face-to-face communication, and it's hard to explain. I've learned. I feel like I've learned more in a week in Los Angeles than I have, say, in a year just from internet networking. It's just, I don't know. That said, I do plan on moving to Los Angeles someday
Here
because
we
I
go.
just,
See.
yep, yeah. There's just opportunity out there, and while I love Michigan, I mean, really, there's not much going on out here, at least in terms of film music or trailer music. It's different, and I want the opportunities. I want the networking. I don't know. And overall, man, I'm ready to get out of the snow. To be honest, I mean, the winters here are brutal. I'm sure they are in London too, man.
It's
It's
like, you want that
just
sun, man. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
yeah,
I hear you, man, and
yeah,
I think I'm with you on it. I think that was my. I mean, I loved New York. It very much reminded me of London. It very much reminded me of London, actually, just bigger.
yeah,
Taller.
yeah,
But yeah, I had a great. I mean, when I first got to LA, I went down to Venice Beach. And I was
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit overwhelmed. I was like, "What's going on here, man?" There's this guy trying to sell me his demo. He's putting his headphones on me, and then this guy's asking me for a cigarette. And it's like, relax, guys. You know what I mean? Like, like, it's too much in my face, man. Like, and I'm quite an outgoing guy, but it was. And then my mate I was with, he's like, "Look, it's just like we're in Venice Beach, man. Just calm down, you'll be fine." And by the time I walked, the whole way down from Venice to Santa Monica, which I loved Santa Monica, man. I really had a
yeah,
good vibe there, and everything about Santa Monica was cool.
yeah,
And like I think yeah, I mean, I think for me, the thing I said to myself was that if I was going to go, it would be full in. I'd bring my business with me. I'd want some credentials, some work. I don't want to be moving to LA and then kind of being, to be a waiter, or do you know what I mean? It's all in if I
Yeah.
come to LA.
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully one day, I'll be there, man. We'll be LA buddies, mate, having coffees and doing those things. And I think that's another thing. I think I did plan for this year. I mean, one of the things I had on the list was, me buying you a beer at one point, man, on a state visit,
Oh,
which
that'd be awesome.
I'd very much be up for. But I think it's like this year's just a write off, with all this virus stuff.
Yeah.
But I think next year I'll try and come over, and maybe if there's something going on in LA or something like that, and just like you say, just meet some people and just kind of actually open those conversations. Maybe some people I've been talking to on Facebook for so long, and we've never had
Yeah.
that chat. I think you're right. I think you highlighted a really important thing there, is like the internet's amazing, and I think you can build your whole career just from YouTube, but nothing is going to beat that sit down conversation and that sit down creative talk, and I think that's when you start building like friendships, you know what I mean, like real friendships. And I think that's what you get from
Absolutely.
going to LA.
Yeah.
I suppose with the whole I mean, one of the things here is, I've put down like any thoughts on this, on trailer composer versus film composer. I suppose what I mean by that question is do you have any kind of thoughts to do? I mean, I've just finished another short film which I loved. It was really getting involved in the characters and writing all the different themes, and the composers getting the directors getting emotional, and I'm like, yep, I've nailed it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think you're going to keep down kind of that route of the kind of the trailer composer, or are you going to look for some film?
Um, there was a feature film that was in the works, and I was going to be scoring music from that, but I think that they had issues with funding, so that project itself is on hold right now. Um, but I haven't really actively been searching for film scoring jobs specifically. I've been pretty busy and content. Content's not the word, but I've been pretty busy with trailer music right now, anyways. And I one of my goals this year too, on top of trailer music, is to do more like TV library production music as well. Um, I just want to get a lot of library tracks out there too. So between those two things, that keeps me busy, and I feel like that's kind of where I wanna move career wise, at least for the foreseeable future. But film scoring so amazing too. I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years if I wanted to take on some more jobs like that too. Like, I'm very open to it, but something about doing trailer music really just kind of helps me production wise. Like, I feel like my mixes and everything have been just getting so much better working in trailer music, because like the quality a lot of these publishers ask for is so high that I feel like if I go back into like film scoring and whatnot, I'm just gonna have this just so much more knowledge, and I feel like I could do like a much better job just from all these years spent, with production music and trailer music, if that makes sense.
No,
But
it makes perfect sense. I think I think you're doing a great job, man. Like, I watched the YouTube videos. We'll come onto YouTube, but
yeah,
when you're putting out, kind of talking about, I mean, they're just you. That's the thing I like about YouTube, is it's like, you can be actually useful to people on there as well. Like, yeah,
yeah,
you're showing you can do your job, but you're also being helpful, and I thought the tracks are everything you've been putting out. That's what I'm saying, man. That's why I've been upset I can't hear. Do they hear us? Because I'm like, come on, man. Like, but it's like you're doing a great job with it, man. And I think I kind of laughed when you said about the feature film losing funding, because and that's happened to me 3 times,
yeah,
and it's exhausting, because it's all the traveling and the kind of the energy you put in, and I'm kind of one of those types of guys where it's like, I suppose I like to know everyone that's involved in the project, so I will make that effort to drive to that meetup to talk to all the actors and actresses and the teams and everything, be on the set, and then suddenly you lose funding, or someone drops out, and if they're a key player, the project gets
yeah.
shelved, and it's really sad, man.
Mhm.
I'd say that I put out a video that says the return of the composer on YouTube about sort of probably about 6 months ago, and that was kind of talking about that, because it sort of killed me a bit. To be
Yeah,
honest, I know that sounds really sort of depressing to say, but it did. I was kind of like, you know what? I'm just sick of this now.
yeah,
And I kind of got into production and producing bands, and and launching bands, which is really cool. I love that as well, doing that. But it's
yeah,
only been recently I've come back with that kind of, no, I want to be a film composer is what I've always kind of wanted to do. All the
Hmm.
plugins I've bought and all the libraries are geared in that way. So let's
Yeah.
pick this up again. But I think there's definitely a distinction between a film composer and a trailer composer. I do think that that's true. I don't think they're the same. They're the same skill set, but they're not. I think you have to be very aware of dynamics we have to be very aware of dynamics in all music production, right? But there's something particular
Yeah.
about trailer music to me where I'm even more conscious of dynamics.
Yeah.
And I think there's that like kind of working with music in that way for me is really cool. Um, and I've spent some time kind of looking at Dolby Atmos setups in cinemas and the design of the acoustic design of the space, that music is played in. And when you start understand, I mean, some of these, I know you guys have got theaters better than us, but AMC have just bought our Odeon, and so we're certainly getting all these recliner seats
Oh
and
yeah.
then we're getting all these Atmos systems, 59 speakers and subs in the ceiling and stuff. And I sort of played some of my cues in the cinema, and I was like, wow, okay, that sounds cool. But also I was like, shit, man, I've missed out. I need to put more into the bass, and I've got more room here to work with, if that makes sense, when you're playing things on those
Hmm.
big systems. So I
Yeah.
think, like you're saying, man, if you can hone those, if you can hone, I mean, I know a lot of trailers obviously get played on everything, but if you can hone those skills to produce, an industry quality album, and you keep doing
Yeah.
that, you're in for a winner, mate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think you can go wrong at all with it, and I think just keep going in that side of things. So I suppose I wanted to come on to, obviously, like, I mean, I suppose the first thing I saw was Child's Play, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was cool. That was like,
Oh yeah.
it's like, the way now we're talking Chucky, it's like, wow, you got, how did that come about, man?
Dude, that was well, honestly, the track that I wrote that was placed in it was a track I wrote for an industry album, like maybe a year prior to the placement itself. It's on an album with the Astral Ghostwriter guys. The album's called Failed Transmission, and the song is called Cult that I wrote. I wrote, I think, like 3 tracks for that album, and that one just happened to get used for this Child's Play placement. But really, I was just kind of working my day job, and I got a message on Facebook from the publisher saying, "Hey, we got you something," and I was like, "You're kidding? Well, like, what is it?" And they told me it's Child's Play and everything, and they weren't exactly sure whether it was a TV spot or what it was at the time. But they just said that they had a cue sheet or whatever, and they saw that was used. Um, and to this day, actually, I'm assuming it was a TV spot. Maybe they used sound design from it. I never actually ended up seeing that spot. I was just told about it, which
Oh
is kind of a
man,
bummer. I
oh
know.
man,
Being the first trailer placement I landed, you'd love to see that.
hell yeah.
But sometimes it goes that way, and I was just happy to have the confirmation on it. And since then, I've gotten other placements and I've been able to see those, which has been cool. But Child's Play was definitely the that placement that made me feel like, okay, like everything I've been putting into this for the past couple of years is finally paying off. Like those sleepless nights of just like grinding and writing music are finally coming together. Because prior to getting Child's Play 2, there had been so many um, customs I've written that got so close to placing, like,
Yeah.
to the point where they were quoting prices because like they were going, they were going to use the song in the cut, and then you find out that the company ended up going with a cut from another trailer house or whatever the
Yeah.
situation was, and it's like, you get your hopes up so much, and then you're crushed, and then you get them up again, and then you're crushed, and then you get to this point, you're just like, like, honestly, it's not that I don't care, but I'm not going to get my hopes up about it, and not in a negative way, but it's just like, like, I'm going to be writing music for the rest of my life. Why am I going to get so emotional and attached to these almost situations, And as soon as I kind of just like let go and just continued to work, the placement started coming in, and I'm like, oh my God, man, like, just, it was like just, I don't know, mentally I was just like, what is
What's
going on
happening?
right now? Yeah. So it seems like like the more like or the less emotional I am about the things I can't control, the better things in my career tend to happen. So I don't know. It's cool.
I think there's a bit of mindfulness there, man. I think there's definitely a thing because I used to be the worst, man. Like I kind of throw. I remember one of the first trailer gigs I did was for an Italian a director called
Yeah.
Lucas Pavetto. There's a film called The Perfect Husband, which is kind of
Yeah.
almost like It's almost like a mix between The Evil Dead, but like a husband gets possessed and sort of tries to come after his wife. And
Oh man.
this was a Facebook kind of message I got, and I remember so excited. Like I was got 2 days straight. I'm like on this buying libraries and like going nuts kind of thing. And I think to this day it sounds great, and I do think it sounds great. And actually, the guys at Cavalry, they kept quoting at one point a specific synth sound, which was
Yeah.
actually Zebra 2 was the
Hmm.
library that I'd used for that. And they kept quoting that when they were kind of asking me to pitch for Jurassic World and things like that, at Fallen Kingdom a couple of years ago. But man, when
Yeah.
I didn't get that placement, and it was literally a case of he kind of had already had someone score the trailer, but he wanted to see if someone could do better, and he was
Yeah.
kind of like, I think these are kind of on the same level. So I'm just going to stick with the one. Like I didn't bring anything new, I suppose, to the table. And at the
Yeah.
time, man, that hurt, and I was really depressed about it. But actually, looking back on it, it's like, well, no, the dude said that it was of the same level, and this was 2014, so I just come out of uni, really,
Yeah.
and if I look back and compare those trailers, it's like, that's fine, Mike. You should be thankful that the dude gave you the opportunity to score his trailer. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? In a
Yeah.
real world. So I kind of grew up a little bit there, and I try to kind of. It's like this album I've got coming out on the 14th. It's like I'm just not thinking about it, man. I've registered it all. I've done all the, it's got all the codes. I'm going to press a vinyl. I'm going to do all that stuff. But it's like I'm not going to think about it, man. It's like I'm just going to move on. And I think with
Yeah.
one of the most frustrating things, it's like my heart hurt when I heard you talking about that, man. When you're getting that close, it was for 13 Reasons Why,
Oh.
and for the third season, and
Yeah. Yeah.
what they asked me to do, like a trailerization of a track. So they sent me all the stems,
Yeah.
and they're like, look, you've had probably had similar briefs where of course you get no footage whatsoever, and I'm
Right.
like, look, guys, if you send me the footage, I could probably, this would help me. And they're like, no, you're getting a brief of what the trailer is going to be. But they were like, we want you to trailerize this song. So I trailerized the song. I put strings in it, bigger drums, doubled up the guitars,
Yeah.
and kind of almost remixed the vocal lines based on the vocal lines they wanted. Sent the pitch in, didn't hear anything for like a week, and then I'm getting loads of messages. Like for me, it was like 4 a.m. right,
Yeah.
on London time, and so my phone's like bing bing, and it's Skype binging. Now if Skype's binging, that's something to be, you know. So I'm getting up and I'm like, "Whoa, it's the guys in LA. What's going on?" And they're like, "Mike, they absolutely love it. They've just changed the song." I'm like, "What
Oh.
do you mean?" Yeah, they've made the decision to change the song. But can you do the same thing you've just done for this song? But can you do it for this song? And I'm like, "Yep, send me the stems." So they send me the
Yeah.
stems, and I go through the same process again, man. And I'm up for and I'm really excited, because to me it's like I'm in the room. They're talking about this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I do the trailerization, same sort of thing, send it in. I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. I don't hear anything. And then the actual trailer drops and it's got a completely different song on it again, man. And I honestly sat there,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to need to get a few beers because I don't, do you know what I mean? It's like, come on,
Yeah.
guys, so, but I didn't get upset about it. Again, I was happy to be in the room. But that one was so frustrated, mate, because it's
Yeah.
like, this is going to get played, surely. Like they've basically agreed the first one. They just changed their mind on the song.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, kind of thing. And then, but yeah, I don't get pissed off anymore, man. Like I try to kind
Yeah.
of, like you say, I don't plan on quitting this anytime soon.
Right.
I suppose you touched on a good point in terms of like, if you stay put, I definitely haven't done that. I mean, I'm releasing other people's music now, which is really cool. And I'm working to kind of, mix and master, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So it's like, yeah, occasionally I don't get to write because of that, because I'm kind of
Yeah.
like producing them, or I'm being an admin guy, right? Which is boring, but hey, at one point I'd like to pass it on. So I'm not going to stop doing this, man. Like I think I've got the same take from you there. It's like, I'm just going to keep powering on.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
like, it's all about longevity, really. I mean, like, there's so many people that want that quick turnaround, that quick fix of, you get inspired by something and then you think you can do it and just land something for $40,000, and it's like it doesn't happen like that, man. Like, if you love what you do, I don't know. I'm sure you're the same way. It's something like you want to do it for the rest of your life, man. Like, it's not about getting to that finish line as soon as possible. It's about, I mean, it might sound cliche, but it's really about the journey, and it's about, learning from those things. Like, I think, I think that's outside of music. I mean, it's just like life lessons in that way. I feel like the music industry has kind of just helped me mature as a person, because there's just so many life lessons I've learned from specific scenarios that apply to just life in general. And I mean, yeah, it's really just about longevity, man. You want that, you want to be working till, if you're working till you're like 70, 80 years old, you want it to be doing stuff you love, it's, I don't know.
absolutely. No, absolutely, man. I think that if this was easy, man, we'd all be doing it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
nothing. What's the? Someone said it. I don't know who it would be. But, nothing easy is kind of worth doing, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of
Yeah.
if you've put that time in and you've put that, and it's like I said, man, the amount of times where you've surprised yourself. Someone comes at you and mentions a track that you did like 5 years ago,
Hmm.
and and it's that track that then got you, that's in the room now talking to you, and it's like you suddenly think that, wow, like that track, I did that track in an hour, and it was a little, I was testing a new, like, spiccato sound on a new library kind of thing, and this guy's talking about this track, but it puts it into perspective. It's like it's part of your, like you say, like you rightly say, it's part of your journey, and it's all
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah.
um and that, I think that's kind of why I wanted to start this podcast, because it kind of, I suppose, because I'm not out there kind of in the states, and we have like Dean Ogden does his kind of score, it's not scorecast, yeah, scorecast
Oh.
meets, and I've never gone. I don't know what's wrong with me. I live like 20 minutes from where they meet up in London, and I've never gone. There's always been something going on, or it's one idiot, man, and I really should go, because loads of people go to those, and I think there's one in Germany, there's one in Los Angeles, there's one in London. But
Yeah.
this was a way for me to open up dialogue and start talking to people, because it's like you say, it's like I think the industry is actually quite small when you
Yeah.
look at it. I don't think there's I mean, I can remember I went to like a talk at the British Film Institute in London, and they were talking about, it was the chap, Dunkley. Is it David Dunkley? I know it's Dunkley, but he's an orchestrator, working at Air, and he does a lot of the kind of conducting for Hans Zimmer and those sorts of people.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
was doing a talk and kind of talking us through how they got those big brass sounds and those kind of things. And I'm in the bar, like, afterwards, trying to like networking, and this dude's like, "Hey, are you Mike? Like, is your name Mike?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm Mike. I'm Mike. Yeah, I know you from YouTube. Like, your video on Vienna Ensemble was so useful." And it's like, huh?
Oh.
It's like that's how small it is. I think it's kind of like, I was happy that my video helped him, because
Yeah.
that software's a nightmare to set up, man. But B, it just goes to show you that there are people out there, and let's everyone start talking to each other. It was great to see those guys doing that chat. Dirk put up. There's a few fellas, about 5 guys in there talking.
Yeah.
I mean, your podcast, which I loved as well, because it kind of gave me that. It's just you driving around in your car to begin with, which was cool. I liked that. It's like Grant's thoughts as he's going about his day.
Yeah.
And then you develop to dinner. You start getting a few buddies involved and things like that.
Yes.
Was that kind of your? Was it like, I don't want to write a blog, so I'm going to do a podcast? Was it that kind of thing?
Uh, Kind of. I was doing some blog stuff too, though, but yeah, I've never felt like I was personally a great writer. Um, Talking just is easier for me, and so I feel like the way to really convey the thoughts and the messages I have to say is just through talking, as opposed to writing. Um, but that podcast really started off as is kind of just a spontaneous thing. Like, I think I had the thought of making a podcast, and that same day I just grabbed my hand recorder and took a drive in my car and made an episode. I was just like, "Yep, sounds like a good idea. I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm gonna make something, and I'm gonna put it out there for the world." And that was fun, man. It was liberating in a lot of ways, and um, I mean, it's kind of good to just get those thoughts off my chest because like those are things I think about all the time, and it was good to just kind of like document those thoughts and like they're conversation starters. Like I know we've talked about it, you've messaged me about it before, and like hey, I really like that episode of your podcast, and these topics you touched on and all that kind of stuff. And like I think it's really important to put that kind of stuff out there for those reasons alone, because you'll be surprised how other like-minded people resonate with those same thoughts you have. So but yeah, as time went on, I realized that I wanted to have fun with the podcast, and I thought it was more fun to have like friends and guests on the show. So I kind of started to take the production a little more seriously. I stopped recording episodes in my car, and I actually just recorded everything in my studio. But yeah, we haven't done an episode in, well, I think it was like November or December is the last time we did it. We're kind of on a hiatus, and with the coronavirus going around, we kind of just decided it was best to kind of just let's not push it. Let's just work on what we got, and we'll come back to the podcast when things start to settle down.
Absolutely, man. I know. You said you had a rough time at the end of that year as well. I think your buddy had just had a kid, another kid, four or five kids. You were saying he had. I was like, man, like so. I suppose it's like I suppose it's like anyone who's waiting knows that you're going to be that the hiatus. It makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I really did enjoy it, mate, because I think there's definitely. I suppose there's a conversation for live streaming, which is something I flirt with. I did a little bit of it as like a Patreon exclusive when I was writing my last score, where there's about like 15 hours of me just swearing at Pro Tools, pretty much. It's that's cool. I like that idea, but I think the podcast is definitely, it's like we say, anything you put out into the world like that. That is what it is, man. You're putting yourself out into the world, aren't you? It's another way of you communicating your thoughts and your ideas to the world. And I think rightly so, they do resonate. And I think because I think I was having a bad time, man, that when you put that one about the creativity, the very first episode, I was just knackered and, working out 15, 16-hour days. And I'm like, what's going on here with this? Like, and then I listened to that, like, I think I couldn't, it's typical, isn't it? You work 15, 16-hour days and then you can't sleep. It's like, there's seriously something pathologically wrong with you there, isn't there? Kind of thing. But I listened to that podcast, like, when I couldn't sleep, man. I was like, this is Grant doing the same thing, going to work, and then trying to kind of ritualize, like, his work time at home. It's like, we're all going through the same damn thing. And that was kind of reassuring and nice to know that. But also we have similar thoughts. We are the same, us composers. I think we're the same stock of people in that capacity, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be looking out for that, man. When that comes out, without question, I'll get my notification. I'll be listening to it without question. In terms of, we touched on Child's Play. What do you think was your most your kind of standout? I suppose at the moment, given that you've just released your new album, you're going to be the same situation, like either waiting for that cue sheet to be submitted or you're getting that message. What do you think has been your standout stuff so far, man, in terms of your placements?
Well, recently, what was it, March? I think it was March. I got confirmation on a TV spot for a movie called The Hunt, which has probably been the biggest placement I've received so far. And then in February, I had a trailer placement for a Korean movie called Watching. I believe it was called Watching. But yeah, those February and March were good months for placements, and then more recently, it's been some TV stuff that's been starting to pick up. Some TV shows on like Discovery Channel and what is it, D-Max? I think that's probably how you pronounce it, but yeah, I think The Hunt was probably the big standout for me, at least this year, anyways.
Awesome. Now that's the thing as well. I think we all sort of get sort of fixed on Hollywood stuff, But those Korean films. I mean, obviously with Parasite, I don't think that was Korean. Was it Korean?
I think I thought so. I think you're right.
Maybe it was Korean, but that was massive, man. It won the Oscars, I've lost your stream of your picture, but it doesn't matter. It should be fine, man.
Okay.
It's Skype being Skype, but yeah, that was, like I say, we kind of we get wrapped up, I think, in terms of like everything's got to be Hollywood, but Bollywood is massive, but they've got obviously their own composers that are very, very well versed in their compositions. But I think those, those foreign placements, if you like, that you'll find that you'll get that statement, and all of a sudden you've got a placement that's been, in Australia or in God knows where, and you think, really? And it's almost quite
Yeah.
interesting to try and see. Like, I've had things randomly placed that I didn't even know of. Tracks from ages ago that just suddenly pop up on your statement. It's quite
Yeah.
interesting to kind of see what those projects were, and kind of try and understand why they got placed. So
Right.
it's always a bit of fun, that I find anyway. Trying to see what those placements were, and why. So
Yeah.
that's really cool, man. I'm pleased to hear that you've got stuff happening in that respect. It's always like we said. I know you're going to keep pushing forward, but I think you're getting the placements through from your old stuff, and you're going to get new placements through from your new stuff. So it's just really cool, man. It's really incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's a waiting game at this point. You just write the best music you can, and trust. You gotta find publishers you trust, and once you give them music, man, it's just trust the process. If they're landing placements, you know that they're pitching stuff. So sometimes it's just a matter of time. I mean, I see it happen for some people in less than a year, but for me, it took every bit of 3 years before I really saw something significant. So, and I know it's longer for other people. It's different for everyone. So it's just the most important thing is just to keep pushing forward and try to keep writing songs that are better than your last, and it'll pay off. It'll pay off. Just
Absolutely. I mean, do you think that's your next? I mean, I suppose, like, what's up for you next? Do you think you're going to keep? Because I think that was, you definitely highlighted with writing almost like an album of content that's focused in one particular area. I think that's really important when you're talking about, especially for trailer placement. Is that something?
yeah.
Are you going to be? Do you looking to kind of keep doing that? Kind of just compile things?
As far as like solo albums go,
Yeah.
or yeah, I think that there's a great benefit to doing solo albums too, is because if they pitch an album and someone happens to choose a track, I mean, you're not competing with any other composers in that matter. I mean, it's a solo album, so no matter what they choose, that's a placement for you. I've got some albums I'm working on, some more solo albums I'm working on right now. But on top of that, like, I'll still do the I guess you'd call it compilation albums, like where a publisher will send you a brief, and there might be 10 different composers all writing a song or two for that album. I've got a couple of those going on right now, and I'm actually writing another album that's actually almost done, with a composer friend of mine named Tristan Noon. We're doing a 10-song album, and I've got like one more song to write for that. And so that's all keeping me busy. But I think my goal is to, trailer wise, to at least do two solo albums a year. And then, from there, just give a couple songs to this publisher or that publisher. Or like I was saying, I kind of want to like write some more TV library music. So like once I've got those two solo albums done, I'll focus some energy into those areas too, and just kind of like test the waters and see what works and see what doesn't work for me, and go from there. It's all about kind of refining the process, I would say.
Absolutely. If you TV stuff, one place to check out in New York is a library called MIBE, MIBE.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that sounds familiar.
yeah, I think they're quite prolific. I mean, they're quite good at their A&R is quite good at reaching out to you. But the reason I'm suggesting it to you, dude, is they tend to sort of place in like sports documentaries or like sports stuff. So it's quite heavily rock, I suppose, orientated, high energy. And if that's a field that you kind of
Oh,
like in terms of the new out, it might be a good starting place for you, man.
yeah. I'll definitely check that out. Have you written for them then?
Yeah, I've probably got about 30 cues sitting in their library, if you like.
Oh, cool.
And I need to check in with them actually, because they sent me an email sort of saying, "Can you?" I did one track called "Bewailing Under the Eastern Skies," which was it's like a East versus West composition, and
Yeah.
from that they're kind of like, "Hey, can you do like a 10 track album for us by like tomorrow afternoon?" It wasn't quite that harsh, but it was like, I think I got the email on like a Friday like afternoon my time, and they
Yeah.
wanted it really by like Tuesday, and I kind of said no, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Oh my
You know,
gosh.
but yeah, check them out, man. Definitely. I mean, they got me some placements abroad in Europe. That's for sure. Just small spots. That again, I just
Very
see pop
cool.
up occasionally, and I see it on my statements, and they message me. Yeah, it's been used here, and they're cool guys. I'll try and dig out. I'll message you the guy's name. I think it's Phil something. Phil
Okay.
with a Z. I'll send you his email address, man. Get in touch with him.
Okay, yeah.
And I don't think they're so. I mean, they haven't got anything from me that's kind of like almost like a full album. They've definitely got cues as well. So
Yeah.
if you've got anything sitting around that's not licensed, it might be a way of you getting some stuff out just because they primarily deal with TV, you know.
You're right,
Um,
right.
um, I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think my steps are going to be that trying to kind of write an album, you know, and if it goes to industry, it goes to industry, mate. Let's do it.
Yeah. Hey man.
If that's what it's
I
been
mean
written
the
for, you know, why not?
the way right, the way it goes, man, you might have a higher chance of getting some big placements if it's secretive, you know? You never
Absolutely,
know.
absolutely. If no one knows about it, absolutely, man, absolutely. So, for people, kind of, where can people find you, dude? I know you're pretty respondent everywhere, really. Where's your best place, do you think, in terms of social media
Uh,
contact for Grant?
I think honestly, I mean, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are the big three. I mean, my name on there is Grant Borland, but or YouTube as well. That's something I've been doing. But really, if you go to my website, just www.grantborland.com, I've got all my social media sources linked there. So that website's kind of a nice central hub for everything. But yeah, yeah, I'd
I
say that, or
I think
I'm everywhere.
your YouTube, because we cannot stop this podcast without talking about your YouTube, man. Because for a while, it's like I thought, why is Grant not doing YouTube? Because I think you threatened it during the chat one time. You're like, yeah, man, I'm gonna buy a camera and start doing some YouTube videos. And I thought, good. And then I
Yeah.
think you put kind of one video out, and I liked it. I was like, well done, man, nice to see you. And then I've seen you've put two out this week. Is this
Yeah.
is this? Have we got Grant on the map as a YouTuber? Is it a thing now?
It's definitely the push too. That's definitely something I want to do with this coronavirus. I know it's such a negative thing, but to shed some positive light, um, with the coronavirus came me getting laid off my day job, and I was out of work for about a month. So I had a lot of time to write music and just a lot of time to myself, and I figured that was a perfect time to just start making YouTube videos. I had been wanting to, but whatever, I never did. You know, I put any excuse you want. I came up with it and said, "Oh, I shouldn't for this reason or I shouldn't for that reason." And I don't know, that's usually not like me. I usually like to kind of push myself outside those comfort zones, but you know, being laid off for about a month really got me thinking about it more seriously. And yeah, I put out 2 videos this past week, and I am definitely going to be uploading more frequently. I'd like to do at least a video a week, but we'll see how things go. You know, there'll be busy months and maybe it won't be nearly that frequently. But I've got I filled like a notebook with a bunch of YouTube video ideas, so it's just a matter of checking those off the list. And actually, part of the reason I want to get into YouTube too is just kind of, you know, more of a personal brand, start to grow that. You know, I'm working on some sample libraries and some sample packs too that I want to sell off my website. And I feel like YouTube might be a good platform to kind of organically promote that stuff. You know, like if I'm bringing value to a composer who's getting, you know, introduced to the industry, if they find my videos helpful, hopefully they'll feel inclined to buy my sample packs or whatever. And I just feel like it's a good way to grow a brand that way. So
A-
that's kind of part of the reason too.
Absolutely, man. I think I'm all for it. I'll be supporting it. And I think you posted up on Instagram some stuff where you kind of been making your own kind of library. What
Yes.
what is your current? You're using Logic, right?
Yeah, I am on Logic. Yep.
Is that, are you mainly? I know you've got some outboard synth for stuff. Are you mainly pretty much in the box?
For the most part, I do go to the hardware sense for a lot of stuff, and I've got an outboard compressor that I use from time to time. But I mean, you can't beat the convenience sometimes of just the in the box stuff. I mean, most of the plugins I use and are all in the box. They sound great to my ears. Um, but it's nice. You know, I don't want to be one of those people that have like millions of dollars of synthesizers around me because I feel like I'll just be overwhelmed and I'll never get anything done.
I hear
But
you.
it is but it's nice to have a couple synthesizers and just I don't know. There's something about the hands-on approach to coming up with sounds that's really inspiring sometimes too, especially if you're in a writer's block. Just kind of spending a few hours and just goof around with a synthesizer, you'll come up with some cool stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, what are you using if in terms of your I/O and things like that, your interface?
My interface is the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20, I believe.
Good choice.
Um, yeah, what are you using?
Well, I've got a Mackie Onyx desk, and
Oh,
really I shouldn't really be using it because I feel like it's definitely it's a live console that they kind of built in like as an I/O that you can send the channels back to a door. But it is I feel like that was an afterthought. And I don't know whether it's just getting a little old now, but I do get a little bit of latency with it. And obviously with Thunderbolt now being a thing on the Macs, when I bought this
yeah.
dude, it was like Firewire 800, which is like archaic now, man. So I'm kind of I suppose at the time I bought it, I was looking to go down that route of kind of like doing live sound and stuff. So I've just stuck with it. But I'm in the market for either a Focusrite, one of the Scarlets. With the, I probably would keep the inputs, so I'll probably go up, try and keep the least 8 inputs. But man, I want to
Yeah,
get one of those UAD systems, man. But it's
yeah.
just again, it's like, do I want to sink like $2,000 into this or whatever else? Do you know what I mean?
And on top of that, all the plugins too. It'd be nice if they included a good chunk of them with their hardware units, but it's expensive, man.
That's the thing. I mean, the plugins wise lately, man. I've been using the Slate Digital stuff,
Yeah,
and I think that I'm really impressed with it, man. Like it's for $15 a
dude.
month,
Yeah.
occasionally it annoys me because I've got the auto install on, so I go into my
Hmm.
system. I'm like, what is all this stuff on my computer now? But like that's just my fault. I need to turn it off. But like it is, man. Like the quality of those plugins are like are really really cool. And we were doing there's a chap Devinder Bedi. Who's very much into his Sonics. I chatted to him a couple of weeks ago for this podcast, and
Yeah.
he did a really cool thing for me where he was taking because when they model, say, an EQ, um, where the what people do is where they kind of whether you'll see people doing this, they'll think, right, so I'm going to be like boosting a kick drum, so they'll just open up an EQ and just blindly start moving around the frequencies they know the kicks are going to hit, but
Yeah.
actually because the hardware they've modeled it on kind of has characteristics because it's electronics, right?
Yeah.
They slightly warp. So certain consoles, the frequency ranges aren't exactly where the meters are, if that makes sense, in terms of the knobs.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
And that modeling comes into the plugin. So if you open up a
Oh.
bunch of EQs and you put, say, like a peak or like you attenuate a specific point on 3 or 4 plugins, you'll find that the sound will actually be slightly different.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I suppose this is a slightly weird way of me talking about the hardware versus the software thing.
Yeah.
But the Slate test he did in terms of the resolution of the I think it was the Infinity EQ he was
Yeah.
testing with was like spot on in terms of the modeling that they've done,
Ah.
which made me think that the guys, they know what they're doing. I mean, do you use the Slate stuff in terms of like your mix and master?
Not the Infinity EQ. Is that a new one by them?
It's new, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I used the Slate stuff last year. I did cancel my subscription only because I always got CPU spikes with their stuff. As great as their stuff sounded, I mean, if I've got like 100 track session and I'm starting to throw their plugins on things, it just really started to bog my computer down. So I did stop using it. But that wasn't anything against the quality. I definitely think that their stuff really stuck out amongst competition, but um, I still do use a lot of like the Wave stuff. I use Sound Toys a lot. Some of the Fab Filter stuff as well, but it's
Fab
good, man. Slate's great.
FabFit was great. I mean, are you using an iMac?
Yes, I've got a what is it, 20 late 2015, 2016 iMac, something like that.
I got you. See, that's the thing I did find. Like, I mean, it is a pain, right? And I'm one of these guys who I just hate bouncing things. I
Yeah.
push my computers too much, man. It's like I almost want to like compose, mix, and master in the same damn session, and I don't want to mute anything or bounce anything or freeze anything. And it's ridiculous, really. It is ridiculous. For this last score, I did actually go, no, we're going to bounce the stems and mix them as audio like I would with anything else. Come on, Mike. But I do hear you. I mean, I'm running the old, what they call the trash can, the Cylinder Mac Pro.
Yes, yeah.
And I have found that it does start getting intensive, especially if you're using a
Yeah.
lot of linear EQ and sort of like real time modeling in that capacity. It does get a bit hot, especially in a big session.
Yeah.
But I do wonder whether that's partly my console as well, that it's not dealing with the IO buffer in the best way, which is why I'm looking to upgrade.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know. I just think I've just got a feeling that there's something with that that's cool. Because it's saying to me that, you know, I've run out of CPU, and it's like, there's no way, man. I've run out, it's like 24 cores or whatever. There's no way I've run out of CPU. But it's also another thing is that kind of irritated me with Logic, man. Like last year is I don't know whether it's got any better. I'm actually yet to check out the new Logic.
Yeah.
It's the way that was the multi-core management, man. Like I'd be looking at I got some videos on YouTube about this. Around the time I was doing the Jurassic World pitches, man, I was having problems, and it seems to put loads of your mix bus on one core.
Oh.
So whereas Pro Tools has been sort of spreading the load across all your CPU, Logic wasn't doing that, but I believe they have addressed it. And if that's the case, you'll probably find me back in Logic.
Yeah, yeah. That must be new in like the newest version of Logic then?
Yeah, I think it was Logic. It was 10, like Logic 10 I had, and it just kept like. To be fair, it did go away once I obviously got the new computer, which helped out. But it's still doing it, man. Like you look at that core, you're like, why are you got all these cores and you're just loading up that one channel? But I think it's just the way. I think the Logic code goes back a long time, and I think it's just the built-in, you know, with the whole environment and the way Logic kind of works in that capacity. But I mean, in terms of a DAW, what a solid bit of kit, man. I mean, all the plugins you get just off the store. It's just, I mean, and I was one of the guys who bought Alchemy, Camel Audio's Alchemy back in the day, you know, and now it's like bundled in, man, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. Well, listen,
Alchemy itself it probably justifies the price of Logic, you know.
Absolutely, it almost makes you. I mean, obviously, I still don't have Omnisphere, which I think is shameful.
Oh,
you know, I've seen you use that quite a lot, and I got to get it right.
Oh my god, dude! Yes,
got to get Omnisphere, man. Definitely.
You've got to order that tonight. So good.
I'm gonna get a message tomorrow morning. Have you ordered Omnisphere yet?
Yeah, I will.
Perfect. Well, listen, man. Look, any other further anything you want to leave, man, for the listeners of this podcast, man?
Man, not really. I mean, I'm just happy that you had me on the show. I know it's late where you're at, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's awesome.
It's been an honor, mate. It really has been an honor, and I think, moving forward, it'd be great to have you on again, man. I think as things move on, I don't. Sometimes I feel I listen back to them and it's like I didn't ask that question or we could have expanded more there. So for me, if you're up for it, man, I'm always up for follow-ups. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I'd be honored. Absolutely, man. Well, listen, thanks so much for talking to me, man. I'm gonna need to run to the loo. I'm gonna be tying it up, but I'll link everything down, man, to the in terms of the show notes. Just from me, I suppose my closing kind of comments to the guys is, support Grant, go and check out his YouTube, go and check out his SoundCloud, listen out for those. I'll probably be the first guy who'll be sort of publishing the fact if we get anything off that, then they do not hear us. I'll be the, can hear it here, guys. You know what I mean? Like I'll be the first guy sort of like putting it out there. So, and just, from the UK to you, thanks very much, mate. I really appreciate you spending the time to come on. Thank you, man. It's been great. Absolutely. I will see you on the other side, mate. Awesome. Take care. Take care, buddy. Yeah. See you later, man. Bye.